Yo, what's up? Mang and Neads show. Chair's empty.
Hey.
I got little Chris back here. Special after lunch special.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Mang and Neads Show, special edition,
I'm
End
Neads.
of the World podcast.
That's Mang.
End of the world, coronavirus update. Everything's shutting down. 8 p.m. My prediction is in a matter of a couple of weeks, stores are going to start to become scarce, and we're going to be heading towards a full apocalypse.
A new world order.
We're going to run this show as long as we can until they shut down the internet, until we lose our power. We're looking for a, some kind of FM transmitter once this happens.
We're
Maybe
gonna
some
hook up a
AM, we can reach
generator.
some longer waves with AM. Get on some AM radio. And we'll keep this thing alive. Try to give as many updates as possible. Right now, everything is shutting down. 8 p.m. Restaurants.
Yeah, they're gonna go to delivery.
Yeah.
They're gonna try to do delivery. Delivery.
Restaurants are going to do delivery.
Yes. No custies inside.
So that's going to impact a lot of people that are already living on the week-to-week, month-to-month survival, and now cutting out a chunk of income.
To
It's
waitresses,
really going to-
bartenders.
It's going to put a damper on our society for sure. So here we are. We got Neads in the house.
What's up?
We got Chris.
We
He's
got
up
Chris.
here.
He's
Chris
behind.
up here in the old. He's got his own image, and we are back to the original. This is how we started this thing. I think it was almost 3 years ago.
Just the three of us.
3 years
Yeah.
ago, trying to make something happen,
At least 3 or 4 years.
and here we are, still trying to make something happen. But unfortunately, it is the end of the world, and survival. That's all that's
Survival.
going to be happening. So.
Get it while you can.
Once again, you're listening to Sonic Gardens Radio, Mang and Neads Show. So what other kinds of updates we got?
Well,
So you were saying, I mentioned that, some guy from Italy, or he's from America, but he's living in Italy, and he's witnessed this whole thing go down.
right,
And
the
how,
numbers. Yeah, we were
yeah.
ahead of their numbers for their day 4. We were ahead of them by a few hundred, I think, with cases.
And then it skyrockets in the first,
Yeah.
the next
And obviously we're
100
not there
days or
yet.
whatever it is, or I don't know how many days.
And we're not there yet. I forget where I saw that chart. It was a beautiful little chart. And then it had California. And then it had all these. California was high. Highest state of infected.
Yeah.
Well, at the point. Or the quickest. Now I think New York's taking the crown, I think.
New York City,
Well, New York State. Yeah.
just because of New York City's population, because I don't
Probably.
think upstate has been terribly infected.
Hasn't made its way yet.
Anyway, I'm healthy. I'm
So
doing
far,
well,
so
but
good.
I'm not. I don't want to go see my dad. I don't really think there's any need to interact with, which already sucks, because man. End of the World podcast. So anyway, the other thing we were talking about was I constantly watch these YouTube videos that make me laugh by a guy named Vic Berger. I've mentioned him before, but Vic Berger makes these like videos that just takes clips of what people actually do, but he puts like music behind it, kind of like the music that's playing right now, and so it changes the feeling of what's being said. And one of the people he likes to really pick on is Jim Baker, the TV evangelical that was imprisoned for fraud, and then when he got out, he's still doing it, but now he's selling buckets of survival food, and he's been calling for the apocalypse. And it's just interesting because I bet you his stock is up right now, even though this guy is nonsense.
Dude, no, he's great. He sells buckets of food, and then he tells you, it'll be there. You got 6-month wait. He's great.
6-month wait.
Yeah, for the food.
So
to
they're
get there.
5-gallon buckets. And this guy, I don't know.
Dude, somehow
it's just hilarious.
somehow a 5-gallon bucket turns into 40 gallons of rice, and and then
it expands.
Yeah, and then but it's, come on now, think about it. And then he does the same for the broccoli and cheddar. Dude, this guy is fucking
broccoli and cheddar.
Broccoli and cheddar, and then
wow.
And then he pours it in. So they do like a preview of this, and they do it for you live, like in this big fucking water tank thing, and they pour the cooked rice in there, and then he's like, that's 20 pounds, and then he pours 20 or 20 gallons, and he pours 20 gallons of but he's only pouring it out of a 5-gallon bucket. But he pours 20 gallons. Oh, here's 20 gallons of cheddar and broccoli. You can.
They mix it all together.
And they mix it all together. You can eat for days with this.
They mix it up in one of those horse troughs.
Yeah, horse troughs. Sorry, yes.
That's what it is. And then he's in there with a shovel, and then he's like, and you can get your survival shuttle to dig the latrine, right?
Yeah. This fucking.
He's got a whole episode on digging the latrine.
This is fucking this guy.
Baby.
I like him. Sam Cedar, he's good, man.
Ladies and gentlemen.
But what's he doing? He's picking on Jim Baker?
Yeah, they were
Or
doing
is he giving
like
a Coronas update?
Co-op, like he was talking about the co-op. No, I don't. I think this is old. Maybe not, but
Is the world ending? Are we on the verge of the apocalypse? Maybe. Maybe we are. But, ladies and gentlemen, via Jim Baker.
Jim Baker.
We hear a new vision for the country.
so Jim's got a new vision for our country. This was taped. I don't know when it was taped. Who gives it? But he wasn't talking about this.
Oh, it was a different.
Yeah,
different
but here we
end of the
are,
world.
though.
Okay, what's he got though? Let's see if he's got anything to advise our viewers.
Well, they're going to tell you about his co-op about the bucket.
We take a piece of what when you order that, a little part of it goes to keep us on the air.
See?
And it's really a small part.
I
it's
see.
not even what a big store would have. A lot of stores would have a lot more profit in it than we do, but it's what
He's living
we do.
healthy though.
It's keeping us alive, but it's going to keep you alive.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see.
I'll tell you what.
I'd like to give that
Very
exact
happy.
same advice to our viewers
Yeah,
out there
I
that
So it's
this whole operation is not we've got a lot into it, and it's not that we think that we're going to recover all that in full, maybe someday, but any kind of support for our cause would be great. Thank you very much. And by the way,
So
you
should
can
we give
call
her-
in
Oh, yeah.
today for our show at 607-373-4328. And if you would like to, give your thoughts on this. And,
Give us a call.
And what you're doing to stay safe and in the apocalypse.
we're distancing. He's not really that close.
Yeah, we're a few little bit away.
So these buckets of Jim. So he does it. He doesn't tell you how much you got to donate though. So much money. So you get a year of this food, right? 4 buckets, 1,496 servings. You get. Fucking you. It's a 30-year shelf life, Angelo.
Really?
So you can hold out until you really need it. So that's just all you need is a donation. $650 donation gets you a year. 4 buckets. Like I said, you cannot beat a 30-year shelf life. So you're listening to mAng and Neads
on Sonic Gardens Radio.
This is a after lunch special right here.
Nice, dude. We got a pretty sweet screen behind us. Just newly added to our production is this green screen. And just a little plug out there that anybody wants to come record their band, you can come in here with just your band. You can keep that underneath them, that 25 people. We keep this place clean. We keep some, wash your hands and the sink and some soap. And, maybe.
Don't forget to wash your...
But if you'd like to do a podcast as well, you want to use a green screen, you got some kind of craft that you want to record some episodes, and you want to post them on your own Facebook page or your private page, or you want to do some family recipes, or you collect gems, whatever it is, man.
Cooking show.
Whatever you want to do, you can do it here at the Sonic Garden Studio. So we're not just about bands.
You can bake a cake.
We're also about podcasting, production recording, and as well as private party venues. So although it's not a good time for private parties, or in the future once this clears, it's a great place to have a birthday party, have a DJ party, have a reunion party, whatever it is. So.
Bar mitzvah.
Sonic Gardens, Norwich, New York. Yeah, all the bands out that are losing gigs, you can definitely come here and record a live session. And my whole, what I'm really trying to do is build a archive of all the area's local talent. And this is something that I've been working on for a few years now, kind of put a lot into it. And my real drive is that coming up, I've witnessed a lot of bands evolve, and especially on the small level, and then eventually life takes over. People move on, and it's hard to continue the momentum of the rock and roll or whatever style music you play. So, growing up, my father was a drummer. First band in the 50s, the late 50s, and really he's still playing, still plays, still practices weekly, and it's really great though. But as a young man, I discovered some reel-to-reel 4 tracks in my basement, and it was a band called the Moonhill Band. And on there were, at least 10 original tunes that were, to me, just amazing, great tunes. A lot of my friends and people out there know the songs I'm talking about. And just like me, I'm sure those songs are stuck in their heads. So what that kind of said to me was that we need to archive music, and maybe even... beyond, it's great everybody's making CDs and everything, and that is obviously a piece of the archive. But the whole live recording concept is like something that goes hand in hand with your, CD. So even if you've made a CD, you can come here and record live. We have a really great recording system and engineers to work on it and get you a nice... final clean track mix from your live recording, as well as what we did last night, being able to broadcast with a professional audio with its own mix off of our board and into the PC. So if you check that out, it was Shaka live at Sonic Gardens. It was for our Sunday night rehearsal, and I was beyond expectations. I'm really excited for how it turned out. So just like our podcast episode with us stepping up our system, we're doing the same with that. So looking for bands to book and to come in here and record live, build up our archive, become part of this radio show. I'm also going to be doing a daily show where I just play music throughout the day that we've recorded here. And at this point, we have over 12 hours of mixed music that is, put into the archive, and we can just scroll through up to it's almost 120 songs, over 20 different bands, and like I said, just looking to increase that number, increase our local Central New York musicians archive, man. Promote, everybody promote each other.
Central.
Let's build this thing. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
And
Lot
and
going
so if
on
you're
right now in
gig
the world.
hungry and you got your gigs canceled, this is the place to go. Check out our clip for Shaka at Sonic Gardens on YouTube, and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right. We got Josh and Chris keeping it all fresh with some music here. And yeah, sounds good, guys.
Well, thank you.
Anybody wants to call in, number is 607-373-4328. This is Sonic Gardens Radio.
Let the old world know he's on some off-key tip, mega manic. When time the pressure start licked by the hook or by the crook, by the poop or by the kick heave. Sickly cryptic, spitting the code and most proud to present that Crufferton mode, and it shows that bros done. Seen a few slights, life row scenario, reality bites. We in collision with the beast. Lost to religion, now we can't get no peace. Idiot, we can't want to take eye for chief. Stoop to the level and we plotting cold grief. But we should know that discipline make up the geese. Separation of the dat from the rat, that's a must. Proceed, set speed with the Crufferton touch. Proceed, set speed. The Crufferton, y'all. Wanna submit with some old time shit. Let the swigging that deep root juice. Now we dip running boots. Set them spirit them loose. Go ahead
Yo,
and
yo,
slash
yo.
up the news. With conclusive proof for both the truth, the right. Cause whether we hitchhike or push bike or travel kind of trash. Manifest that with oats and roots rap. Man, enough. Ain't else I know. Life with this a ragged bone flow, squeeze the pain from my belly and set my soul free. Travel over ocean, land and sea. Fake snuff, stress and difficulty. Flunk back from we don't give a frig about what them sun come, rain come, them running boo. Let them spirit them loose. Go ahead and flash up the news. With conclusive proof. Cause whether we can shake or push bike or travel kind of dark master burst the bionic zit splitter. Could that depend upon the demon that you're stuck with? Cause right now, I see clearer than most. I sit here contending with the Earthy's worth was nil and witness the fitness, the Crufferton. Witness the fitness, the Crufferton. Witness the fitness, the Crufferton live at one hope, one quest. Witness the fitness, the Crufferton.
All right. Damn, that's a sweet jam. Uh. So once again, you're listening to Sonic Gardens Radio. It's the Mang and Neads Show, End of the World podcast.
We're getting
Once again,
funky with
what's
you.
the latest updates on the virus? Everything's closing at 8 p.m. Breaking everything.
Yeah, if you want something else, if you want to go out to a restaurant and eat, today's the
Better
day.
do it.
Better head out.
Better go get some Corona. Oh, yeah. We're live.
All right, so you got any updates for us?
I thought you were updating. Oh,
No,
you're
I
jamming.
got like my hands full. The NFL's business as usual. They're signing players left and right. Free agency. Tampering period, they call it, between today and Wednesday.
Rita's closing at 8 p.m.
8 p.m.
until
tonight.
further notice.
Yeah.
It's over. I'm telling you, man, there is no way that the small businesses are going to be able to handle this, just like the people living week to week.
Right.
There is no way, and I'm just blown away, man. I don't get it. Like, if you're somebody that lives off of, an obscene amount of money, like $100,000 a day,
Oh, boy.
like seriously, then you're equivalent to, like, the common man that would, like, lose their job would be like getting a, your stocks going to zero.
Man, that coffee smells
So-
good.
So my whole thing is that why would we look at that guy's loss any differently than, I know it's not just one guy, it's a whole company. I don't know, man.
They got to pay,
It just seems to me like, why are we cutting trillion? Like, it wasn't like a billion. Like, that's where we're at now. We cut $1 trillion bailouts for the people that already have all the money. They gamble it, and it turns out there's not even a risk. You just lose all your money.
Yeah.
Like, where was the risk? I thought that was why they were like, hey, we risk stuff. I guess they should have sold earlier.
Right. Risk reward.
Yeah. So I think
Right.
that that's going to be something felt on all spectrums.
But one way to look at it, the comeback's going to be fucking killer, right?
The comeback. For some,
Right?
it's going to...
Anything, like a bar and anything, they ain't had any money.
You think, like, when
New
all of a sudden
money's
they
good
open
money,
the door
right?
that, like... Well, the whole thing about Norwich is that what are we even complaining about? This place is a ghost town anyway.
Right.
You don't see 25... If you see 25 people in a bar, you're calling your friends saying, wow, it was packed tonight.
Packed. Backpacking.
It's true, though.
Yeah.
So...
There's a clean one.
That coffee does smell good. I was gonna say that
Yeah.
I didn't have a coffee cup, but
Smell killer.
this whole thing with the bags, that's another thing. The plastic bags, it's not really a big deal, man. I went to the store 2 times when I forgot to bring a bag.
I always just carry everything outside anyways.
Yeah, well, sometimes a little bit. Sometimes it's a little rough.
Well, I just bring the fucking... I wheel the fucking thing, or if I have the baskets, I carry them to my fucking car, unload them, and bring the baskets back. Healthy
Yeah.
America.
Wow.
Not everybody's lazy America, right? Fuck cold, isn't it? Fuck.
No, I hear you. But it's nice because then you
Yeah.
get home and you park in the driveway. In the driveway, you don't have a cart, so you got to, like,
Right, but you have something in your house that you could.
load it in.
Yeah.
Like
it's all
a
about,
box.
Yeah, it's about activity for yourself.
No, it's true because now
Everything shouldn't
I saw
have to
somebody
be
else behind
done
me.
in
They
a
didn't
hurry.
have the bag from the store. They just had a box, and they're like, "I'm prepared.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my shit in a box."
Fuck yeah, I got a box. What do you think they carried? Yeah, everyone should have a box. What the fuck?
Yeah,
Nice box.
decorated.
Yes,
box. Oh, you
decorated
could do them
box.
like the like your textbooks in school.
Yeah, remember when you actually fucking will put a cover on the fucking thing? You remember that?
Excuse me.
Were you
Earphone
cool?
bang.
Did you put
No, you know what?
newspaper on yours? Or
I was
do you-
always kind of intrigued at how those
Or did
things.
you
Some
put-
people made those ones that like slipped on. Where
Oh,
you didn't
yeah.
need to tape them on. And
Not
stuff.
me. I had to wrap mine like a fucking. I had that thing wrapped like a present because it always would. That's how I got good at wrapping presents with lots of tape and shit. Because they always would. Mine would slip out and stuff, but not after I rigged that motherfucker up. I had more duct tape on that than a NASCAR. I had that thing. Yeah. But then you couldn't write on the outside of it good. People decorated them up, man.
Those were in your studying days.
Yeah.
No, you know?
Yeah. Scholar.
I learned more. You learn more
You learn more as you go.
as you go.
Fucking A.
And what do we know?
What do we know?
We know that this
We know that-
situation here is never happened before. And just want to let you guys know that if you want to hang out with us through the end of the world, we'll be here. We'll be on the air. We'll be here as much as we can. We'll see what happens. And
Yeah.
that's it, man.
Whoever's managing this year is not doing very good.
I try to make a joke
know
out of
that?
everything, but deep down,
Deep down, they're managing this year about as well as they managed that Fry Festival, right?
so
Fucking, that's how 2020's going.
yeah.
Smooth. Fucking A. Getting choppy.
But is there?
Tell me.
It's kind of weird because you can sitting on the fence. It's not a problem. It is a problem. I mean, wait it out, see what happens, be smart.
Well,
But what do you think, man? Do you think like because this hasn't happened?
in a while.
No, like this. This has never happened where
Yeah.
they're shutting everything down.
1918, man, I'm telling you. And the cities that didn't, I'm telling you, I was trying to tell you guys about this the other day. So the cities shut down back then. The ones that shut down more than the others, it was like a 50% less got infected in their city or their state. The ones that didn't
Right.
shut down as well as the other ones did. Yeah, 1918 was a hell of a year, man. There was a world war going on. People got infected and fucking died. It was over 20 million worldwide. Unless I got my numbers fucked up. And I don't usually fuck up my numbers. But I could have them wrong.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. I've heard that millions is definitely the number.
Worldwide, not in USA. We didn't quite get a million, but we had a bunch. So
I have a friend from Hungary that.
it's going to be a while before we get back to. It's going to be a little bit before we get back to normal, probably.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. What's
be normal?
How is anybody gonna make it through that? That it's that.
Well,
It's bullshit, man.
no, it's not bullshit, but you need to fucking realize if you don't have that, you might not be able to get food as quick. So, pace yourself. Even if you think
Coffee?
you got some money and shit, pace yourself with.
I
this
was,
stuff.
but no, I haven't.
Seriously.
I haven't. The whole thing with toilet paper blows me away, but you're starting to see there's certain other things that are starting to decrease. But
Yeah, you can't get Tylenol
that's
hardly.
that's
There's
the
hardly any
article I was
Tylenol
reading
out
that
there.
basically the only thing that will be open in like 2 weeks, the only thing that's going to be open is hospitals, pharmacies, And what else? One other thing.
When is all that
like-
shit gonna come to an end, though? When are they gonna stop fucking shipping shit? You know what I mean? Because they gotta ship.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it's going to come down to just essentials, and that is medical and yeah.
But I'm saying, like, someone's got to drive that food in trucks, is what I'm saying.
Same
like, even
with-
for you to be able to go to the grocery store, someone's got to bring the fucking shit there.
So
Is
I
what I'm
think
saying.
that they
So,
can
like,
do that stuff by minimizing people's. I mean,
You got to have somebody unload the truck. You got to have somebody put it into shelves. You got to, you know what I mean? There's a lot of if ands, man.
and basically people are just being told you're laid off. Like,
Well, it's like a pause.
'Cause
They're
I
going to
saw
hit
that,
pause for a bit.
yeah, but
You know what I mean? Like, you
So
can't
that means
expect someone to pay their rent if there's nobody can do anything. Think about, you know what I mean? And you can't expect people to pay their electricity if nobody can fucking do anything.
seriously, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the Nice Egg's going to walk around and shut shit down.
No
You
way.
don't. That's not happening.
No way.
That's a fact.
That's not a fact, but who's going to be at if you're so the Nice Egg people can all go to work, like in the office and shit. That lady that says your bill's up, you're due, she's going to be in there working. Everybody got shut down by her. You know,
It's
like, come on now.
automated.
Like, who are
That
they
shit
shut
is
down?
automated. You just get the bill. In fact,
All
mine
right,
gets
so
paid.
the meter guy, you're telling me he's gonna have the balls to roll up to your house, to a guy's house, that's his last thing, is fucking power that he's enjoying, and he's gonna fucking cut it off? There's gonna be a fucking something go. You know what I mean?
I don't know, man. I always figured there was like some guy that had to stand there and like crank the thing in order to
They
keep
just-
the electric going. And then once nobody's doing that, electric's gonna go out. We're gonna
Right?
be
all cranky.
end of the world. Like I said, if we can get an AM transmitter,
I got
of some
generators,
kind,
so
and,
we're good. All we got to do is
yeah,
have
we got
fucking supply
generator.
of gas.
and some gasoline.
Yep.
All right. So
So,
there you have it.
if
You
you
heard it
see
here
us take
first.
over a gas
Sonic
station-
Gardens is going to be transforming into a defense compound from the coronavirus, but also from the hordes that will be clearly, with the way things are right now, people fighting over toilet paper. Then this is really going to be an all for one, and we need to stick together. Find the group of sanes, and everybody, protect each other. Look out for, the evils, the bad
Jesus
ones.
Christ. Trump says the governors should find their own respirators.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, for
that
the
doesn't
states?
sound good, does it? Yeah. You know what that sounds like?
Find their own respirators.
Yeah. That sounds like you're off to fend for yourself.
So Trump's saying, no, is he just saying like states should start figuring out means to take care of themselves?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Look inside your own being.
Yeah, we're coming to a halt in the U.S.,
You will
man.
never be as fully alive as you are now.
Yeah.
Words from Muji.
Yeah.
So,
Trump says get your own fucking. The governor should work on getting their own respirators.
you mean for the
yes,
people?
for the people. For their people.
Why do who needs respirators? Like hospitals? Like what are they referring
Yeah.
to? Like,
Because that's where it gets you. This thing does. You're breathing.
and they're like out of them. And then there's some guy
Well,
like
there's gonna be a mass fucking. They're waiting for the masses to get to the hospital with it. The infected people.
right,
Yeah.
and they're gonna give them a mask,
He said-
and that's gonna help.
Well, respirator. Yeah. Trump says not.
So-
they shouldn't wait for the federal government to provide. Yeah, he's really.
End of the world. Well, I don't usually do this, but like I said, this is the End of the World podcast, so I'm going to have a cigarette here. I don't know, man. I don't smoke, but
Well, he smokes. I'm gonna get out of the way
I don't really care.
because I don't smoke. So he's
I'm
gonna
gonna get
talk to you for a minute. Oh,
I'm not going to talk.
I thought you were gonna smoke on TV.
I can't. Not on TV. It's not good for the kids.
Oh.
I actually have a call coming in. Hold on. I got a call from the
you got a
Norwich
call.
Schools. Updates here
yes.
from Norwich School District.
Here we are. Updates. Putting them live. Chris, turn that down for a second.
Director of Special Programs at Norwich City School District. Based on information from a recent meeting with DCMO Superintendent, Norwich City School District will not be sending students to any out-of-district placements, including BOCES, effective immediately. Students who normally attend school in BOCES or another off-campus site will not have school on Tuesday, March 17th, until a tentative restart date of April 14th.
They're gonna come back to
Teachers
14.
and related service providers are putting together packets of instructional materials that will be sent home to students. Should you have questions, please contact your child's school placement or my office by calling 607-334-1600, extension 5411.
Beep
Thank
beep. So you had to send your kid to school today?
No.
Oh. They didn't have it, right? Shit, shut the fuck down. Fire going.
Just got a text from Dale. He's thinking he's got to stock up on some shit. He
I
thinks
bet.
things are getting a little crazy.
Yeah.
I think things are. They're taking a turn, man.
Taking a turn.
As we sit here.
Get
But-
your money and go spend it on
Like,
food in case you can't get any.
Okay, so Josh, what's your level of fear that this could go out of hand to the point of, like, literally, we're people that have I don't have a freezer full of food or like anything. I don't know, you probably do.
Yeah,
But,
I definitely we have food.
But still, that's
I'm
gonna
not
run
worried
out.
about that. It
Like,
is gonna
that'll
run
run
out.
out. So I guess that'll
But-
last. You can still kind of.
You know
Curtis
what goes
has got the means.
We've got
You got Curtis.
Yes.
Oh shit.
We've got and we live right next to where all that goes down, like where you would hunt.
So
fruits
seriously,
and
all right.
vegetables.
So there you go.
My great fruit and vegetable hunter.
Then
Curtis.
it sounds to me like the people that are screwed are the people that haven't been taking the advice of society to get out there and figure out how to get your own.
Right.
Because and then the other guy is Randy. Randy's out
Yes.
there.
He's out there
He can
eating
get-
bark right now.
So he's going to be a very valuable asset in this coming times, and that is going to be Mr. Randy Hewer,
Yes.
our own rattlesnake on the congas.
Fucking rattlesnake Randy.
This guy goes out into the woods and he forages, and he can go right out into out back of where the studio is and find 7 different edible things
Yep.
that aren't awful.
He,
you know,
he
like
hasn't
little-
ate the wrong thing yet. He's
Nope.
fucking batting 1,000, folks.
So that's a show that's going to be coming to Sonic Garden soon. Is the
Into the Wild
Randizzle
with Randy.
and
rattlesnake
his
And
he's
his
going to give you
fucking
his
bag of
what he
tricks.
forages, and he's going to lay out a table. We've talked about it. He's going to have some video for the live footage to go over.
He's
of
gonna have
him
some
finding
mushies.
this stuff and what he's looking for, and seasons and all this stuff. So stay tuned. Maybe you can learn a little bit about surviving.
He likes to eat grass.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. So, Chris, how's your deal going?
Chris,
You're
tell
like-
us about what you have fucking going on.
Hey, come on, the language needs.
Well,
You know,
sometimes, hey,
hey,
that's
sounds
the
good over
least
here.
of people's worries right now is language.
It's true. It's true.
People not knowing where their next shit's gonna be. Because they don't have any
What
toilet
happened?
paper and they're riding around. Found a bathroom. So tell me, Chris.
Over here we got a lot. It sounds great, man. Everything's set up. It's the first time we run it like this, and hey, what can I say? I can't complain.
Can't complain.
I'm trying to blend it in nice. I don't have anything really set up. Just going for it.
Sonic Gardens,
You
man.
can just imagine walking with Randy
That's
out in the woods
cheap.
right now. by a nice.
Sonic Gardens. End of the World podcast on Sonic Gardens Radio.
End of the world. So I just got this video. These people are stealing toilet paper out of the things at like at a rest stop or whatever with a power drill on reverse and just wind it up on there.
Oh, really?
You don't want to
Yeah.
get screwed.
Isn't that great? That's fucking awesome. Yeah. People can't get water either. Lucky for us, there's a whole fucking river of it right here.
Yeah, I don't know about drinking that shit.
Well,
but
it's
I did see on
Better than not drinking
another one
anything.
of those things on YouTube is they show you how to filter water. Just
Right.
simply with like cutting a 2-liter, putting like sand and grass and all these things in there, and dumping water in it, and what drizzles out, crystal clear.
No mud at all, he says.
No,
No mud at all.
All right, we're gonna do a. I'm
All
gonna
right.
share this.
We're
try
gonna
to
share it.
this
What is it?
podcast right here on the Mang and Neads show.
Oh. We need some live updates.
We gotta look shit up.
Oh. That's what we're doing, looking shit up over here.
Send of the world. All right, here we go. And
Did you know, though, that the U.S. now has more than 4,000 known cases?
do they?
Yes.
And that's known cases when
Known.
they are not even testing a fraction. They don't know. They're only testing like who are they? I mean, who do they test? What was the update on Trump's test?
I don't know, but how about that dude? How about that dude that fucking got all that sanitizer, sold a bunch of it, then he went and got a bunch more, and then Amazon fucking stopped him from selling it. He was selling an outrageous amount. He made like 70 grand in a day or two.
So I have my my Amazon order that's supposed to be here, and I know
Well,
you
it
said
better-
like,
oh
it's
yeah,
not
they're
gonna last
slowing
much
down
longer.
some shit. They're
So-
slowing down some of it.
I have some stuff coming today and a few things coming tomorrow and Thursday that are part of my like stuff I get every month. Like I get toilet paper and coffee and like things that I just know there's no way around. I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna always be going back for it.
Right.
Non-perishable.
Some guy fucking.
So I get a few things. And am I gonna get it? Am I gonna get my monthly supply of TP?
Since you ordered it when you did, yes. When did you order it? When's that automatically order come through?
Earlier in the month. Yeah. They like make the order, like the order's confirmed, and then it
Yeah,
gets
so it's
shipped
already
out
been
later.
boxed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming. I don't know, man. Shit's gonna start slowing down after this week. So they gave it gave a participant a vaccine trial. They're doing a trial dose on this guy. Gasoline and butter. No, but really though, they got a guy participant. It might be a lady. Might not be. Might be a male. But
So yeah,
They're
not
taking
to
the
throw you up,
doses.
but Dale, he's looking to get a ride to go grab some stuff he needs.
so
He
if
was
you know
thinking, man,
anybody out
he
there,
thinks he needs to stock up on supplies. He's a little nervous about it, and he said feels like it's a test run for a bigger, scarier things to come in the near future. Martial law's coming. FEMA camps. We better be careful. So here we are. We got our fortress, Dale. This is where we're going to hang.
yeah,
We got so much room. I think we can pull it off.
See you on the other
We can
side.
start some fires. We can put some,
tire
some,
fire.
tire fires inside.
Paint it. Well, New Jersey's got an 8 p.m. curfew and to restrict the travel. They got a lot going on there. Did you watch the debate last night? Huh?
I didn't, man. Hey, here's my thing.
All right.
Uh,
I
what
turned on for a couple minutes.
I had a rough time. Taking it in, but basically, and what it comes down to across the with most of the people that are in the same boat as me is that we really saw that the world was kind of changing public opinion and how the whole point of this Bernie movement was it was supposed to be a landslide.
Right.
And the moment it wasn't a landslide, it just kind of, it's not that I don't believe in it, it's that there's not enough people that believe in it. And based on where we are, like even things with this, the way people rush the stores, it's like, I don't think that I may be the minority, but I don't think that I'm the idiot by any means. So,
right.
There you go. But at the same time, I've never controlled the circumstances. My guy has never been in charge, so I'm back to the same person I always was. I'll doubt it. I won't really trust, I don't really think anybody has much integrity. And, yeah. So, see what happens. Freedom.
Freedom, everybody.
Yeah.
Freedom of the mind. So, I turned it on for a minute. Just a minute on accident. I didn't, and then realize whatever is two old guys, sound like two old guys fighting over the last piece of fucking bread on there is what it was. You this and you that. Nobody ever talks about anything. They just fucking blame somebody on something. How some dude got blowed by somebody or some shit like that. Did some shady shit. They're worried about somebody else doing some shadier shit. So they rat on them about the shady shit they did. But forgot about... That's another thing. These two are up there arguing. Neither of them can remember fucking dick about what they did fucking 20 years ago. So, you're listening to Sonic Garden Radio.
Yeah.
This is
Sonic Gardens Radio, Mang and Neads
show.
Yo, Chris, you got a Mang and Neads song or something? Like something? Yeah, it had something that was like, what do you? Hey, what do you know?
I don't have it.
Hey, what do you know?
We need to record it.
We shall. Yes.
Hey, what do you know?
Hey, what do you know? Another Mang and Neads show.
So we're running on 50 minutes here, ooh-ah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And
your buddy got the coronavirus, he says.
who's that?
That actor there,
Hanksy?
no,
Leo?
no, that Idris dude there.
Oh, Elba.
Yeah.
The
He got it.
gunslinger.
Yeah. He got it. He's spreading it around to his family by the looks of the picture I see here. James Bond actress says she has the virus. I have no fucking clue who she is. The police would like everyone to stop calling 911 because they ran out of toilet paper. France says ibuprofen may aggravate the virus. And experts say we need more evidence. So, there you have that. So Trump, he's thinking about giving us a possible nationwide curfew. So there's that. I don't know if everything's closed at night. I don't know what you need to be out doing at night, unless you're getting her done.
What you gonna be doing tonight, Needs?
What?
What you gonna be doing tonight?
I'll probably sit on my ass.
Hey. Hey. Come on, man.
Mamma mia. So what else you got for us, Chris? You got anything for us? Have a seat. Have a seat. That's
Oh, nice,
good
guys.
coffee.
I like that.
Have a sip. Yeah, why don't you see if you can't get the fucking virus or give it away. Well, at least it's not like a herpes. You gotta suck someone off to get that, Chris.
What is that?
So I figure
The sucker pee.
Ming and Neads after school special. What do you
Oh.
Sonic Radio
we
live.
got some nice imagery going on
You
this
do?
podcast on that
Yeah,
green
here we
screen.
go.
What were you figuring? Yeah.
Hey, I don't know if I'm going to work tomorrow morning. Maybe I'll go there and.
There's no fucking work, Chris. They shut it down.
I'm gonna do some takeouts and deliveries. I hope, man. Serving is my duty.
Serving.
Service. Well,
They canceled.
I like the shirt. Man.
Yeah, it's a nice shirt,
It's
isn't it?
awesome. Look at
Jerry Garcia on there. Right? Sticker, shirt sticker. Beautiful. Beautiful.
make stickers. Right?
What's that lady say, Ange? That's what we gotta do.
Wow.
What lady?
Wow. Tell me more about Jim Baker and his.
Jim Baker's a banker.
No,
He's making money.
Jim Baker buckets. They call
How many
He
buckets
is a
you
banker. He's bucketing his shit.
buckets.
I think we should
Buckets
start
of
our own
buckets. Buckets
Sonic
of
Gardens
goods.
buckets.
It's old Vic fucking Burger Bark. Vic Burger presents Jim Barker. Buckets.
You gonna give us an audio performance?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the greatest clip of all time.
I gotta put the headphones on.
All right, we'll play. You want to play this? This is a quick clip. This is maybe turn that stuff down a little bit.
They're strange, but I'm going to share it with you.
Chris,
I can't figure out why I got this going.
you got me on.
It's on perma delay for some reason.
Yeah, it's on
I
delay.
can't turn it off.
Oh,
Oh yes, I can.
it's Jim Baker, everybody.
You know, I saw in a dream in the future, I do not know the time, young people, I would say teenagers, maybe,
Wow.
Wow.
maybe 20-year-olds.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they were crying.
Wow. I love that.
You know,
Dude, you gotta get yourself some Jim Baker, man.
things are going to get so bad soon.
Wow.
Do you understand what I'm saying at all? I mean,
Yeah.
you knew. I think I told you about it yesterday. They were crying.
Yeah, that one scares me.
Young people.
Wow.
Young
They were
people.
crying. They were
Yeah.
crying.
Yeah. So is that why you're saying that that's what Jim is saying was there was that he said he saw, he has it written down here for us, the producers do. I saw, Jim is saying he saw, you saw in your dream, your visions. What Jim is saying was there was that he said he saw. Yeah,
What the fuck did
crying.
Jim say?
He has it written down here for us. Jim is saying he saw, you saw in your dream, your vision. Young people crying. That's what
Perilous times are coming. Perilous times are coming. You say, Jim, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Well, tell that to God.
Tell that to God, Jim.
If I made it up, it's really dumb.
Wow, that's good.
Wow.
We need to prepare. I saw young people, and they were crying. They were crying.
Jim is saying he saw young people crying.
Crying.
I saw, Jim is saying he saw, you saw in your dream, your vision.
There's
young
they got
people
Jesus
crying.
through the window, dude.
Was
They got
time
Jesus
of
through the
great
window.
Confusion.
All right. That's our fucking Jim Baker tune. How
Jim
you like
Baker.
that? You like that fucking tune?
Hey, Chris, do you have any of that Coast to Coast, that clip of that one lady?
Oh,
Man, that
no,
was a great
but-
one.
Yeah, yeah.
What is it?
It's
Coast to coast.
It's on that.
hard to like look up exactly what.
Yeah, I gotta get. It's on the old iPad. that,
Wow.
Nate's. I gotta get Nate to reset it.
Wow.
Coast to Coast. I don't know if there's any clips on there. Coast to Coast. There's some good stories though. We could bootleg for our End of the World podcast. That is
Yeah, we'll look into that.
winding down, everybody.
Who's
You
that?
know?
Young Blue? Coast to coast? Oh, that's
Trying
a
to wade
rapper.
this thing out. No, Coast to Coast is a radio show. Coast to Coast, AM maybe.
Open House TV. Bond.
What's that guy's name? The Nighthawk or something?
Oh no.
What's the dude's like? Chris, do you remember his name?
It's like that.
Nighthawk or Coast to Coast Radio?
The Nighthawk. Coast to Coast Radio. Sounds good. Night. Sonic Gardens Radio. We here with you. We here with you. We can do a clip.
So close to the possibility of disclosure. So definitely.
Coming in hot.
There's so many multi-layers of physiology that you have to work with to actually progress somebody's age. That it's not one thing.
What if the time travel, two things. One,
Sounds like Dolly.
actually people from, let's say, 30 to 50 years down the road who go back in time and actually help these civilizations instead of aliens.
Right. And number 2.
So this guy's cool because he just lets people call in and share their stories, and there's some
enter
really
in a
crazy
place
stories.
that's outside of time or space. So, from what I've heard and experienced, let's just say that we're all time travelers, and I think that, let's say in the future something bad happens.
Who's the poor asshole that
And many
just
of us
time
from the
traveled to
future actually
2020?
come back
Fucking in the middle of this.
in the past.
That's where it came
certain
from. It's a
knowledge.
futuristic disease
And we actually
that somebody
change
brought
those
back
timelines so that those things don't
to
happen
change
in
the
future.
timeline.
So in a sense, we're altering time by reincarnating back into previous timelines and evolving from there.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. Damn.
And I work with different doctors and new technologies. That's kind of like part of my day job. And there are technologies right now that are very advanced that are just starting to come out in North America. I can't really say too much, but
He doesn't want to whistleblow too
kind
much.
of complementary medicine or integrated medicine coming into the future, where not only are we still using obviously surgeons and pharmacology because that stuff saves lives.
It
You know,
does.
Trauma medicine is the best medicine if you're in trauma.
Right.
But to heal, to take something home with you where you could help regenerate.
Yeah, we had some clips that were already pulled out of some great stuff.
Pull out clips.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We got it on that Duncan Trussell podcast.
Oh,
Because he
Trussell.
interviewed him and he pulled up some clips. What?
2 minute. Take it to town, Chris. Really give him something to listen to for a minute. Seriously. fuck's going on? You're listening to Sonic Garden Radio. This is the Mang and Neads show. After school special. No school.
Stock market crashes.
I crashed once. Coming in hot.
What?
Chris?
So here we are. Sonic Gardens Radio, End of the World podcast. Trying to keep everybody
pull me out.
Comfortable. Soothing. Listening to some
right?
Some nice soothing music from Mr. Christopher on the Mang and Neads show live at Sonic Gardens Radio.
He cut me.
I didn't cut you. I don't know what's going on. Something's going on.
Mang and Neads show. Something's going on. You got any breaking news for us?
Test 1, 2.
Anybody got any breaking news?
Let's see what we got for breaking news, friends.
So I'm not in there, Chris?
Yeah, I don't know what. No.
Well, that ain't fair.
I mean, I don't. You know.
That's no fair.
So we just want to say thank you to all the people that tune in to listen to this show.
Yeah.
If you can, give it a like, subscribe, catch all the fresh live videos when they come out. Make sure you hit that little bell button to make sure that you get notified.
Yeah, everybody likes a good bell. Bell rung. I just want to know why I'm not coming through.
I don't know either.
I don't like it.
Something.
It's unplugged. I was in there for a second, and then you muted me or something.
The top stories are major cities implement mass shutdowns amid outbreak. Supreme Court postpones oral arguments.
Man, they could fuck up a free lunch. Jesus.
Graphics show why it is critical to stay home if you can, even if you're young and healthy. Congress weighs how to pump cash and confidence to a virus-weary U.S. School shutdowns could leave some students hungry and far behind their peers. What the Fed's rate cut means for your mortgages, student loans, and credit cards. Hillary Duff blasts millennial a-holes who are still partying instead of self-quarantining. USA Today has an article, have a dry cough or a sore throat, 9 steps to take if you might have coronavirus. John Oliver torches Trump one last time before signing off of the Last Week Tonight with John Oliver.
Yeah, they cut all the...
And the Huff Post, Italy has been trying to send us a warning. Will we listen? The Los Angeles Times has a column that says Biden won the debate. He needs to quit letting Sanders pull him leftward. And People magazine has Trump's ex-assistant releasing a book about leaving White House for dishing on president's family. Dishing?
Dishing? What the fuck is that? You been dishing on my family? Dishing?
Hey, Sean Newman. Yo, Boomer. It's dissing. Disrespecting.
Oh.
Jesus.
Oh. Dishing.
It should be.
You dishing?
I'm going to start saying that, though. Don't dish me, motherfucker.
Yeah. Ball kick.
Mitt Romney's coronavirus economic plan, $1,000 to each American adult. That sounds a little bit like the Wang Gang.
Yeah. Wang Dang. Yes?
Oh, I'm sorry. I misplaced where I am here.
Oh.
Okay, we are back into the news of the day. What else do we have here? White House declares imploding markets a great opportunity to buy. Ding ding.
What is it?
Vanity Fair. Every time Trump opens his mouth, 9 lies fly out.
9?
Coronavirus edition. What? Coronavirus-stricken Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson released from the hospital. Vanity Fair. As the world shuts down, the Queen goes to church and Kate Middleton goes shopping. It's great news, guys. This is like the stuff we need to know about
Fuck
in the
yeah.
end of the world.
Who's Kate Newman?
Kate. Wait, who? Middleton?
Oh.
That's the
Who's that?
The Prince Charles' wife.
Oh, he
or
got
Prince
okay.
What's the other one? John, James, I don't know. Fuck. Who cares?
Dick.
Dickhead.
They call him Big D. Big Dick.
I leave it all alone. As I go back to the basics. I'll set out on my own. Take on the world and face it. I leave it all alone. As I go back to the basics. I'll set out on my own. Take on the world and face it.
Yeah, basically now the news just rolls into completely nonsense stuff that I don't need to know about. I guess none of it. But let me tell you, glad to be here with y'all in the mAng and Neads show, Sonic Gardens Radio, at our Sonic Gardens studio in Norwich, New York.
Norwich.
This is our End of the World podcast, and we don't know how long we're going to be able to keep this thing going, but as long as they got internet, as long as they got power, we're going to keep this baby moving. And we don't stop.
Can't stop.
Won't stop.
Never stop.
I leave
You're listening to Sonic Gardens Radio. Mang and Neads Show. So here's some breaking that upstates here. Italy announces nearly 28,000 coronavirus cases and 2,158 dead. So that is giving you a actual 10% death rate. Is that legit?
Wow.
If that is legit, then you see that's way higher than the numbers. And that's the ones diagnosed. So I guess there's people that got it. Okay. So those are people that are definitely had it, but that doesn't mean there aren't people that have it that didn't even suffer any symptoms and whatever. Maybe it passed through. But 10% from Italy, so 350 million people in the U.S. That means we're looking at 350,000 cases.
Oh.
350,000 cases. No, wait, that's not what that means.
Math's not very good.
That's not what that means.
Math was wrong.
Hey, you know, what can you say? Math.
Math.
Motherfuckers.
When
So I
it
guess the way we
matters-
do that is we could figure out the population of Italy. But I guess we're not even going to bother with that. 10% of the people that have been tested have died. That's the facts that they're saying in Italy. Major League Baseball is suspending the remainder of spring training and pushing back the beginning of regular season.
How far? June?
I don't have that information. Ohio's governor wants to delay Tuesday's primary to keep people out. And I think that's another thing. The schools are closed until April 13th.
A lot of unprecedented shit going on, isn't there? Things that you haven't seen in your lifetime, right?
Some say the 14-day quarantine isn't nearly enough time to have it pass through you, and it's closer to 6 weeks. Conspiracies arising that coronavirus was actually caused by Charmin. might be a good time for everyone to reach out and give a call to their parents, people that are up in the age. Let everybody know you care about them. End of the World Podcast, Sonic Gardens Radio.
mAng and Neads. Wow.
Wow. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to stock up on your buckets of food, give a reach out to Jim Baker and support his noble cause. You know, that's my biggest thing with that, guys. I don't understand how someone can go to prison for being a fraud evangelical and then get out and start another one. And
Another fraud.
Bam. Another, you know, basically, yeah, fraud. But I guess it might not be fraud if it's the end of the world and he's been some of those
Buckets,
people
man,
that
he's
got the buckets
getting
are saying,
donations for
"Motherfucker."
buckets.
Jim
Buckets of
Baker was
rice.
right. We have entered the world of virtual reality. And did you know that you can watch your YouTube videos in virtual reality? You can watch the mAng and Neads show in virtual reality. If you have a pair of virtual reality goggles, you can just type in the little 3 dots in the corner of your YouTube video, and you will see VR. And you just click that button, give it the old time. You put the goggles on, and it's like you're right here in the Sonic Garden studio with us. Yeah. Sonic Gardens Radio. So what are you guys all doing for the end of the world? You know, what's going on?
Livin.
Live.
Living la vida loca.
Living la vida loca.
You know, the best thing is when Chris just went up there with that guy. Look at what the background was for that. For like, you didn't even know. And it was like exactly what was going on. mAng and Neads Show live. Tool time with Ooh-Wah.
Tools have been in the shed for a while. I heard a rumor that
every garden needs some tools, and right now our tools are at work live in the Sonic Garden studio.
Tools always get rusty, especially if you keep them out of the shed.
Pick one out. We'll do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Sonic Gardens Radio, mAng and Neads Show with Mr. Christopher and Tools, the Sonic Garden Tools.
Draw static electricity. 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 Draw static electricity.
Come on, kick the funk. Rock your body now.
In line between the devil and them riches, with the snakes and the snitches, hoes and them bitches. Come on, kick the fuck. Says them even keeping no them brother. Rock your body now. The plate man, I'm in a sweet top of my pussy, not them sneaker. Bass and treble, man, I'm at a rebel. Man, I fight them foes, them even keeping no them
Looks like we got a gas station explosion in Virginia. Turned up 3 sets of human remains.
What? What happened?
Gas station explosion. Killed some people. in Virginia.
How many you think?
Definitely 3 sets.
Oh, Jesus.
3 sets of human remains.
3 sets. So that's 6 people?
I guess the parts were able to come together to make a full body. Therefore, we got a group that raised over $20 million to build the wall. Now its supporters want answers.
Oh, no.
Let's see.
You're fucked?
Iran threatened Navy fleet, saying they were going to target commercial vessels. Just what we need. Strike us when we're out of TP.
That's fucked up. Have we heard anything about North Korea? What are they up to over there? They haven't reported anything, have they? No one's sick over there.
Nobody's sick.
No one's sick? It's fucking pretty, isn't it?
AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, and Comcast will not terminate services for the next 60 days.
They what?
They won't terminate what we were talking about earlier. They're not going to terminate services for the next 60 days due to the viral pandemic. But my question is once it's clear, are they not going to still have a bill?
Oh, fuck, yeah.
So then it's like, oh, everything's good now.
$90,
Now
y'all
you owe
owe fucking
$300.
triple.
They're going to waive any late fees.
Wow, this country is coming together.
They're going to open its Wi-Fi hotspots to any American who is in need. What?
Well, call them up, tell them we're in need.
Time to cancel our services. Word.
Did you cut me again?
Nothing like everybody coming together when the big dollar's at stake. You know, these corporations doing us a favor, right? When shit falls out the bottom, who's going to be affected the most?
Whoever's underneath it, Angelo.
I think that...
That's a common sense question.
Well, oh yeah, well, of course. And so who's underneath it? The people that are in massive debt because of their jobs that they think are so secure.
If the school loan don't get you, then the fucking job will, man. Fucking.
So, my theory on it is that everybody, even these people that make really good money, they've increased their living standards, and it just really comes down to their.
They're living out of their means, Angelo.
Everybody's living out of their means, so when it all drops out, the people that are going to have to give up the most are the ones that are living out of their means. The people that are walking around, eating half the month or choosing to eat or not to eat, these things that, some people have already been suffering. Yeah, it's going to get worse, but I think that the poor are more prepared for being poor.
Some of them, right?
Some of them. Poor people.
Who's
I don't
Jimmy?
know. Where is little Jimmy? There we are. A little plug out there to little Jimmy's Printing, and he does a great job of printing all of your artwork. Anything like that you can. Prints are a big thing, man. We got a lot of them here in the studio. Some good stuff. Little Jimmy's Printing, Norwich, New York. Reach out. You're listening to Sonic Gardens Radio. We're just grooving along with some tunes in the End of the World podcast, sharing our thoughts, relaxing, taking the day one step at a time. Trying not to panic, trying to keep everything in perspective. Here we are, podcasting away. End of the world.
End of the world. What you got there, Christopher?
San Francisco has been closed down for 3 weeks. Only come out for essentials. That's what they're being told.
Jesus. It's on, man. Sooner than later.
It's on. It's gonna happen quick. That's what I'm saying. It's,
They'll be killing people
We're
in
kind
the
of
streets.
giggling now, but we'll see what happens. We're gonna run this podcast daily and at least give you an update.
We're gonna do daily
every
shit
lunch.
here.
As long as we can keep coming here and not, have to face any roadblocks or martial law. Good luck, everybody out there. We're going to stay on these waves.
Good luck to you, my friend.
Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. C. O.
Thoughts.
I. D. 19. COVID-19. COVID-19. You know what's interesting is that I always go back to that amazing multi-novel story written by Stephen King entitled The Dark Tower. And one of the things that is very distinct...
Dark Tower?
Yeah, one of the things that's very distinct in The Dark Tower is the
particular.
number 19. And 19 is this number that always pops up that it just kind of always means something. And the fact that this is the COVID virus 19. That, adds to the eeriness. Which is a story based on a post-apocalyptic world. 19. I was born on the 19th, actually.
Really? What a great day that must have been. Your parents must have been so happy.
They were so happy.
They were fucking thrilled.
Little Angelo was born.
Here he comes. Coming down the hatch.
Yo, we are killing it with our jams today.
You like the hot
Gonna be
jams?
Some nice listening. Bars, restaurants, and casinos. That was the missing one. Will close in New York State Monday night. So they started with 500. They dropped it down to 25. And now they're just saying, no, nobody.
Yeah, because it's bad, they think.
Somebody knows something that we don't know. But how are we supposed to update the people without all the facts?
We need to update the people. Here's an update. Turn over to Sonic Garden.
Are we trying to say this is our last show?
No.
What? Yeah. So does that mean we gotta go do our like shopping before 8 o'clock, or like if we need stuff at the store, we should?
Bet your ass.
Stores are closing.
I don't know about that, but yeah, they're closing at 11, right? They said something like that. 11 at night, so they can quarantine it up, get it all cleaned up. for when you go in there.
So the stock market crashed again today.
It's a crasher.
As Trump's fix failed. So pump some trillions in.
Pump your fucking brakes, Trump. Gee, Chris.
We have a live coronavirus emergency press conference from our president.
We
Mr.
do?
Donald J.
Right
Trump.
now?
Right now. I'm going to pull it in.
Pull it in. We'll play him some backup.
We got Mr. Michael Pence talking right now.
Who's new member number 32 at joinpacman.com today. Very much appreciate your support.
Who's Pac-Man?
Thank you very much. The conference has ended. We are just listening to folks'
Oh, it ended.
ideas about what's going on. If you're joining us on YouTube, please remember to like the stream.
We don't like shit.
My mic? I think, no, I'm good. It's just
You are?
It's in, yeah, okay.
I can hear you good.
I got you. I'll show you.
I heard. Oh,
You're
can't-
right, Chris. You were out.
Oh.
You weren't in there.
I got you.
My mic wasn't in there. Okay, well, I don't know, man.
Huh? Yeah. I can definitely hear me. What's Ange? What's going on? What,
Nothing.
update the world, please.
I don't know what to say.
Why is the White House on fire or something?
You're saying,
Oh.
Yeah, man. That's all we got. I don't know nothing. I can't get any info.
Oh no.
So we got Dr. Drew and Dr. Oz. Oh, what a group. Rip the media for their coronavirus panic. Urge common sense. Yeah, common sense to stay away from people because washing your hands ain't going to do shit. If you got it, you're transmitting it. Shit is like 20 times more contagious than the flu. Kevin Lee opted out of traveling to the United States to fight Oliveira in the upcoming fight night.
Oh.
And now he's saying that it might be a couple years before see him traveling. Which means what? A couple years? All right, so...
he knows more than we do.
I got a chart here.
Couple years.
That's basically showing how since the cases from March 2nd to now, March 14th, have significantly daily doubled. I guess that would probably be because they're obviously giving more tests. So, well, in other news, I just want everybody to know that the greatest show
I want them to know too.
on television right now is Better Call Saul. And let me tell you why. Because this is an amazing story, and it's a prequel to what was already the greatest TV show ever on TV, Breaking Bad. And it's really evolved into its 5th season of the prequel of like a lot of the characters in Breaking Bad and where they were prior to Walter White's transformation into Heisenberg. So if you haven't watched it, if for any reason you watched it in the beginning and you thought it didn't have the glory of Breaking Bad, give it a try, because I'll tell you, some of the lineups and the scene play, the characters like Nacho and Hector Salamanca, Gus Fring, Mike, dude, these guys are got some amazing stories in there. And just like with Breaking Bad, I'll tell you that if you like gangster movies like The Godfather or Goodfellas or some of these The Sopranos, and some of the setups in those movies are just so amazing, you know, when people meet their demise. And I just got to say, nobody sets these situations up better than the fellas that were doing Breaking Bad. Vince Gilligan and Bob Odenkirk, man, these guys are killing it. The writing is superb. So if you haven't yet, it is right now building up a great season 5 on Better Call Saul, AMC.
Stop lick by the hook or by the crook, by the poop or by the kick heat. Sickly cryptic, spitting the code and most.
We got a caller here live on our show.
Really?
A young man that is in the Norwich City School District. We're not going to mention his name right now, but
is he intelligent?
We're going to see if what he has and what his thoughts are on school closing and the fact that he's not going to be.
Tell him to be respectful.
He's not going to be going to school April, I think 14th at this point. So, what are your thoughts on this, sir?
Oh. He's a radical, huh?
So there's so you're just gonna wait it out. You're gonna try to enjoy yourself, and you're not having any paranoia or fear at the moment.
Does he wash his hands?
Well, I do believe that everyone's gonna die though. So.
Well, everyone is gonna die.
Yeah.
What's the Wi-Fi password?
Oh, the Wi-Fi password, huh? All right, maybe I can give you that off air, sir.
Yeah. Why don't you do that?
All right. Well, hey, if you get bored up there, lonely, you can take a ride on your bike down to the studio.
Pedal that fucker.
Oh no. Well, you got another bike there. Might as well stack them up. There's about 5 bikes we got to bring back now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the End of the World podcast live on Sonic Gardens Radio. And this is the MAng and Neads show. And we just had a guest call in from the Norwich City School District. All right. Thank you very much. Continue. So how's everybody doing out there? Doesn't sound like the kids are too worried. They're pretty excited. I mean, I remember when I was a teenager, man, if they called school out, you were like, what? That's so killer.
Yeah,
That's
it'd be
like
great,
the ultimate
right?
snow. It was like the you'd have dreams about it. Oh, I dreamed they closed school. And it's like, yeah, right. That would be a pipe dream.
Wet dream.
A wet dream. Listening to Sonic Gardens Radio live here in Norwich, New York. So if people aren't going to be doing like these deliveries and stuff, then what about gas stations? Like, is eventually they're going to be just gas stations, no gas? I guess that's a good question. Maybe maybe Italy would have those answers.
Where are you going to be going, though, is what I want to know. Just to the grocery store. Ain't got to go a long ways.
Is our society really that fragile? Are we really looking at that we can go back to the days of no technology, no electric, no power. You know what I'm saying?
I
Can
do
that
know what
happen?
you're saying. It can happen, but it's not gonna, probably.
Is there anywhere that is like got a grip on this? Is there a vaccine yet? Is there solutions? Like, is things getting better?
Now,
with
like I
quarantine?
said earlier, they're trying to, they're doing a test run on some people with a vaccine.
They are test running it.
Yep, they're test running it on some individuals. So, China seems to be, in some aspect, they're sending, like, because they have pro basketball teams over there, so they're letting some of them guys start to practice this next week. So they seem to
be getting
something.
through it?
Yeah, they seem to be doing something. But you never know how many people actually died over there and all that, because they don't tell us the right numbers.
Right. Well, were they the first ones that really kind of
exploded up with it?
Well, like tried to downplay it or didn't want to cause panic in their own society or market.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Save the people.
Chris, you want me to give you a fucking nut shot? Huh?
Huh?
One. Two.
Tough like tough gun. Enter the lion straight out of Babylon. Are you ready for the queen of Machidian?
What's going on, Chris? What? You're not, I can't hear you. Were you talking in the mic? You gotta have that fucking thing on. You're listening to Sonic Garden Radio. mAng and Neads. Special Monday night. Day. Monday.
End of the World
mAng's
podcast.
End of the World podcast.
It's going to be our first of many, because we are going to keep the people up to date.
We are going to keep the world going.
Right now, there's still gas. There's still food in the grocery stores. Restaurants, bars, and casinos will be closing down until further notice. Food places to maintain, they might have to make deliveries, but even that may come to a screeching halt, as many places have more than 20 people working there.
Closed them down, huh, Angela? So what do you think, Chris?
Me?
Yeah. Not much.
There's even ski
Bypass.
mountains have been locked down. Same thing. Too many people, even in that cold snow.
No more skiing. No more skiing.
Trump proposes eliminating payroll tax through the end of the year. That is a great idea, but proposals and passing an actual bill are
two different fucking
two
things.
Different things, yes.
You see, our man holding it together. The tool himself. Down. What you doing? Sit.
Quarantine Italians send a message to themselves 10 days ago. What they wish they knew then.
A lot of stuff, I'm guessing.
Oh, I gotta join you. Take it in.
You what?
I'm gonna go sit over there.
Have a sit. Sit down. And there, just like that.
So maybe we ought to close this one down and we'll reopen in a little bit or something. I don't know what you got planned. Might be able to get some more guests down here.
You gonna bring in some guests?
Bring in some guests. It's like our boys from Sonic's Corner might be willing to come in and do some chat.
The Bag Brothers? Or they're gonna come in?
Gino's down.
Fucking A. My
Ryan
man
can't
Gino.
go do his workout at the Y anymore.
Yeah, he's probably got something. Rhino's probably caught something already. Syphilis.
So do you think that one of the reasons why like Shenango County hasn't had any cases is because we're already so socially, disconnected, or we're already like...
Well, we didn't have any
distancing
people that were
ourselves.
connected to the other people that were connected to the people that connected to the people that had it.
Nobody goes anywhere. Nobody travels.
Well, people do, but I guess
Not that many, though.
Right. Right on. No one got in with the people that had it yet. Don't worry though, they might have. We just might been lucky enough not to run into them. Oh shit. So far so good. There he is, the great John Bush. What'd you do, break your arm? What happened? Well, JB's here. He definitely has fallen. He looks like he fell. He's got lots of dirt on his shoulder. I wonder what has happened to him. Have a seat. I can't hear you. You got talking to the mic. You crashed the one wheel? Yeah, do you think you broke your shoulder? It looks like you might have. You're holding it like you hurt something really bad. Oh, don't do that. There he is. Hold on, let's change this shit. Boom. Mang and Neads show. Wait, what happened? Yeah, have a seat. Tell us a story. Fucking. So we got a report. JB crashed the one wheel. He's been out there laying in the parking lot.
Breaking news.
Knocked himself out, it sounds like.
Breaking news, JB has crashed on his one wheel and knocked himself out. He literally just woke up out in the road, and here he is.
Pants were
looking
down around.
good. Looking good. I think
his pants
arms
were around his ankles when he woke up. Why don't you tell our viewers what you're telling me?
You're listening to Sonic Gardens Radio.
Chris,
we're just
can you hear me?
Killing time here, waiting out the apocalypse and the end of the world to see what comes next.
Key of F, I believe. You ready for this?
Sure, dude.
Ladies and gentlemen, the number is now dropped from 25 to limit gatherings to 10 people.
Yeah. 10 Americans at a time.
So we are quickly squeezing down on what we are going to be able to do here.
Yeah, you
at
better
the
get your
Garden, because
gangbangs out of the way if it's
we
more than 10 people.
have 5 people in our band, enough people on the production, and we're going to have a hard time doing our stuff here.
Unbelievable.
Today, I want everybody to work on not touching their face. That's the way it is.
What don't you want me to touch?
Don't touch your face, bro.
All right.
COVID-19 cases rise with no end in sight. Seriously, man, restaurant workers are just laid off right now. Everybody.
Yeah, that's terrible. They're going to halt human progress for a few days.
I mind getting laid, but off. What's up with that?
What's up, buddy?
Yeah, so all these bars and restaurants are mandatory closed for 2 weeks.
That ain't good for nobody.
What do you mean by all these?
I don't even know if they're going to be doing the delivery thing.
Is that every restaurant or just like big old?
Well, like I just said, is Trump just dropped it from 25 to 10.
Yeah.
I just said 25 was pushing it on employees at restaurants and shit. So now
Right.
dropping it to 10.
Jesus, you
There's
got
10
one guy
people
doing
working.
everything.
Yeah. So
You
it
gotta
comes
you gotta
down
cut
to-
it down. One guy, owner goes in and works, gets you sandwiches. You gotta do light shit.
There we go.
There he is. You didn't go pissing.
Still alive, still alive. JB's back. He doesn't want to join the podcast. I think he's nervous.
Yeah, you can't kill that fucker. Sonic Garden Radio.
All right. I think we're going to wrap it up. We're going to come back. We're going to try and get out here and keep this thing going. We got a lot more going. We got some other guests coming in. And maybe we'll get back at this about 7 o'clock. Might be a good time. All right.
All right, he says.
Everybody go get some dinner. Enjoy your last days of freedom and knowing, thinking that everything is secure. Because what we're learning right now is that shit goes downhill quick.
Life as we know it.
Give your friends the old shaka shaka.
Yep.
Let them know you care.
Thumb in the
but
butt.
don't get too close.
Yeah. Or don't touch your face after you touch them.
Don't touch your face. No face touching.
Little something to send you home to.
Dude, there's an overload at the New York State unemployment website.
I bet. Everybody's unemployed. What the fuck?
Dude selling toilet paper like they sell oranges on busy streets, walking up to cars with rolls of toilet paper.
That's fucking wild. How much?
Doesn't say. It's just a photo of a guy selling toilet paper.
Instead of squeegeeing windows.
the World podcast. Mang and Neads show. Sonic
Mang and
Gardens
Neads.
Radio. Live in Norwich, New York. At the
Live.
Sonic Gardens studio.
Sonic Gardens.
You got a band or somebody that wants to get in here and record with our live setup, we'd love to have you. Send me a message on Facebook, and let's book a date. We'll get you in here, play some music. As well as if anybody wants to do a podcast, any crafts, anything you're into that you want to share, you want
I
to
would love an arts and crafts show.
You want to record some of your art. You want to do live painting like Bob Ross. I can arrange all this. I can set you up and I can make you some videos.
He can give you everything.
Reach out to Sonic Gardens. Trying to build a little something here. A little music and art co-op right here in the heart of New York, Norwich, New York.
Norwich.
Once a great, thriving town, and now reduced to a pre-zombie apocalypse.
Chris killed me. Cut me off.
Oh, I'm sorry, Neads.
Sorry, yeah, I'm
It's
sure.
gonna,
You sound like you really.
It's gonna rise.
You sound like you're thrilled.
So we've been running this podcast for nearly 3 hours.
Are you kidding me?
So we're gonna call it a close here, and we're gonna get started.
I was
up a
trying.
little bit
I
later.
thought I was closing out the music, and Chris
Hey,
says,
man.
"Fuck this, you're done."
Tool Time was killing it.
Shut me down.
Tool Time come out of the Sonic Gardens woodshed, brought us some music.
You're done.
Shut me, fucking cut me right off.
I already unplugged it.
I was trying to have the outgoing. Fucking
That's the
cocksucker.
way it goes sometimes.
What can you do?
What can you do? All right, guys.
Unbelievable.
Godspeed.
Godspeed.
Good luck. We'll
Fuck
talk to you at the next one.
Stick your head between and pray.